song Best I Ever Had, from something I said after having a particularly good curry in the open Pandora in 2006. Anywho, Freeway Ricky wasn't actually able to evidence any of these bold claims, something which Rose herself heavily rebuffed later in an interview.
Using storylines and concepts. If all y'all get some benefit, Port of Miami, that came from him, had a connection. They put in rap with something that he said,
and another salient detail that really backfired on Freeway Ricky was that alongside details about his own drug dealing paths, he admitted to have turned snitch on some dirty cops. But Freeway Ricky must not have realised that exposing his dirty rig so publicly might also shatter his credibility as a drug kingpin. And it was this snitching allegation that actually gave Rose even more ammunition to insult and discredit Freeway Ricky's claims later. And so ultimately, it was December 30th, 2013 that Freeway Ricky officially lost his case in the appeals court. And although a trial court had initially allowed his claims to be heard, the judge Roger Warren eventually affirmed that this case would be completely dismissed on the basis of Rose being able to use that name under his First Amendment rights. And so apparently the creative expression of making music under the persona of Rick Ross, a drug-dealing rapper, is completely protected by the First Amendment right of free speech. The court basically ruled that while Rose did base his likeness on an existing famous drug dealer, he was not an imposter Rick Ross, as Freeway was trying to suggest. Or interestingly pointing out the balance between the right of a celebrity to fairly exploit their own image for profit against other individuals' right to their own free expression under the First Amendment. And of course, if you've watched my channel before, you'll know that I'm no stranger to pushing those limits of what truly is fair use. And I found it really interesting to hear what the courts had to say about it. Though to be fair, Rose had a lot more to lose than me. Most of the time I've just sat around.
No, don't get me wrong. Like my eye out here, but I wouldn't bet the edge if you were the last man in Nouvelle France.
Imitation of a celebrity for gain, because that would trespass on their rights to publicity, unless you add significant transformative elements to their right protection under the First Amendment rights.
I figured I owe
the artistic works are actually a good substitute for conventional depictions of a celebrity or celebrity memorabilia that would already exist.
Of course, I do all the work.
The question should always be, is what you're doing harming the market for the original work? So while my videos have always been in slightly murky waters due to a heavy reliance on fair use of borrowed material, are of a journalistic nature, and in pretty much all cases, I don't show a clip or piece of content unless I'm providing analysis. My video about how Rose bankrupted 50 Cent is hardly a direct substitute for throwing on one of 50's albums, meaning that his baseless takedown of that video about a year ago would hardly hold up in court. And so for all of Rose's on-stage yapping that he's some kind of big-time drug dealer, that never really harmed the market for Freeway Ricky Ross to sell stupid t-shirts with his face on it that were shit he was shilling. Hell, let's be real, the attention that was got from this lawsuit has probably been incredibly lucrative. It seems to have landed him dozens of high-profile investors. To a certain extent, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that this entire lawsuit was some sort of publicity stunt for Freeway Ricky Ross to raise his profile anyway. And in specific, the judge made some fascinating comments about the nature of a celebrity likeness as artistic copyright, saying that while Rose's persona as a rap musician relied on Freeway's name and persona to a certain extent, Freeway's story was the materials that Rose's music career was synthesized with. But Freeway's specific drug dealing story itself wasn't the very sum and substance of Rose's work, which can basically be translated to, yes, I used your name, but you wasn't with me shooting in the gym. So essentially, Rose created a celebrity identity using the name Rick Ross, a drug dealer turned rapper. And according to the court, this Rick Ross persona that Rose created was so transformative it became his own expression, rather than the likeness of another celebrity. And this is specifically done through the work being produced being derived from the skill, creativity, and reputation of that artist, which triggers the First Amendment rights. So essentially, the value of Rose's work and musical catalogue has nothing to do with Freeway Ricky the drug dealer, and people bought Rose's records not because he was some sort of Freeway Ricky Ross impersonator looking to profit off of somebody else's name, because he was a genuinely good rapper, nice with the mic, and a big fat family dude that hip-hop hadn't seen before.
What's up, young Drew and JJ? I'm gonna check out some battles of rappers.
We got LT, we got Reggie White. If they're on the line, it's winner take all.
Come on. It's game. That's what I do. What's up, young man? Had a great time. Make sure you hit Box that TV.
Let's see how far we can get from keto security in 60 seconds.
Aikido is your complete coach and cloud series solution. You're getting started is super simple. Connect your environments like you give to Aikido and it will automatically start scanning your application. Schedule code, dependencies, your cloud accounts, your virtual machines, containers, anything that your application touches or uses. One of the best features of Aikido is its aggressive noise reduction. It reduces false positives by 85%, and it does this by understanding the workflow and structure of your application.
Ironically, this lawsuit forced Rose to confess some of his stories being a big shock to the court, admitting that Rick Ross, his stage name, is essentially a drug-dealing persona, frustrating admission considering how many credibility issues Rose has had. He spent years having his authenticity being questioned, with his past background as a corrections officer being dragged in that suit. We can do a whole video on Rose past the CO if you want to leave a comment if you do. But of course, any ammunition on those insults from Freeway's team was invalidated by the fact that he had to admit that he'd snitched on a bunch of dirty cops in the trial. This even led to a tense back and forth after the dust had settled on this lawsuit, when Freeway Ricky inexplicably reached out to Rose to try and rekindle things.
You might not lost something to say, you know what? Don't be a sore loser. Reach out to him again. Yeah. See if y'all can put some things together, because you still got game, you know.
Yeah.
I did that, and he went on the Breakfast Club performing.
Freeway Rick Ross is doing a movie, and he said that he wanted to reach out to you to see if you guys could actually come together after battling legally for years. And now he's saying, let's come together.
I have a person who finds out on paid instruction. Wait for it before you move.
Oui, mon capitaine.
Testify. Send to prison for life. That's the information I sent with the lawsuit.
And from there, Rose continued to point out that really throughout this entire process, Freeway Ricky was really just scrounging around looking for money, something which to his defense, he was not scared to admit.
Eventually I sued him, you know. I thought I could get some of Universal's money and Warner Brothers money, one of it, you know. But I could tap into their bank account, you know. Like he said on the radio, I was down on my luck.
Yeah.
You know, he said that on the radio. Yeah, he was down on his luck, so he wanted to sue me.
Your blowpipe. A beautiful weapon.
And so after all of that,
One of the finest
Freeway Ricky was really just down on his luck and looking for
I
a job.
remember the day that coward got his stolen.
Yeah.
Man, you're
You
this
should really
man.
need to finally face me.
Talk about you going
But I have come to respond. Now you will be forced from hiding.
speakers and suitcases,
How do you
whatever.
know
You know,
about
he got an
that?
expensive 3-year legal battle and one hell of a way to
easy
and the
as I
malicious
suspected.
irony is, of course, the one
Agate
that
was
was
my
understanding
disciple.
of Freeway Ricky
If
is the
not
fact
for
that
that
in this
living
case,
woman.
Rose was entitled
Who
to
are you
money,
really?
fees, and costs.
The true Macondal burned at the stake.
50 million bucks. But now they say it doesn't have two
You know your
floors.
history.
Yeah, I remember reading headlines about 50 Cent's financial troubles and thinking there was something incredibly tragic about
Miss
that
Macondal
release Get
was
Rich
my
Quick
mentor
going back.
and an assassin.
However, who's checked 50 Cent
But
wasn't actually still alive.
She
which
betrayed
made me
us
think
and he
maybe
died.
there's slightly more to the
I
crisis
uproot that
could be
mistake
seen.
before I carry out his life's destiny.
We need to go way back to
poison
2008 and start his feud with everybody's favorite wing-slinging, fake drug-dealing rapper, Rick Ross.
Swift.
Started off the beef by saying that
brother
50
has
Cent
trained her
really
well,
some kind of way at
but
the
he
BET.
not interfere.
Like, what kind of expression?
50 was saying he didn't even see Rick Ross being tried to get on that thing. He's doing Rick Ross being circulating on the house. Big visual when he released the song India Music. Incredibly shots of Sam for allegedly burning down his baby mama in 2009. And 50 Cent comes out with a response to India Music, his own disc called Monster Ricky. Next day, Rick Ross calls into the says that the response is trash. 50 has 48 hours to respond with something better. Then on that same day, 50 also releases the first episode of his Monster Ricky cartoon series. He is sticking true to his promise of fucking up Rick Ross's life. 50 starts out the video by saying that what you're about to see is slightly more sophisticated than his other work, which I think is a massive disservice to 50 Cent's whole work. I mean, this video is it makes candy shots look like Beethoven Symphony. In the video, the mother of Rick Ross
When I am done with you, I will destroy your mental.
and he takes her fur shopping whilst Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder plays. You cannot make this shit up. 50 also takes the opportunity to call out Rick Ross's other baby mama for being a big girl. A few days after that, Rick Ross releases this Kiss My Pinky Ring for Curly. This song's accompanied by a music video of Rick Ross hanging out with
I got trace of me one final time. Look at you
being gay.
I know it well.
An allegation which
The
seemingly
first time that betrayed me, it was for the woman.
2 days after that, it's the 8th of February, and 50 Cent
No
dropped
one
content
just
on Netflix.
like
He puts out Officer Ricky Episode 2, which shows how Rick Ross got a deal from Jay-Z. He then
What
drops
was
the
her
first
name?
of his series
What was her
of
name?
comedy segments featuring a character that he's created called Pimpin' Kirby. This is basically just 50 Cent wearing a curly wig while shrieking pumpkin tears and threatening Rick Ross with a knife. Then, along with his Crew G unit, 50 Cent releases I'll Be the Shooter, which features so many shout-outs of different types of guns, the song might as well have been recorded in T.I.'s truck.
I will help you uncover the truth.
Designing highly available applications can be challenging, but the best engineers have a secret weapon. It's an open source platform called Template. Okay, so you're a back-end engineer. You've got to build reliable applications in a reliable world. These days, that means distributing them across multiple servers. Congratulations, that makes you a distributed systems engineer. Better study up on leader elections, consensus algorithms, and state machine replication. But there's an easier way. Template. Here, listen to me. I've got a template.
In response to this, Rick Ross essentially copies 50's idea of the animated diss video and releases his own version called Gay Unit Workouts, which I'm sure even the slowest of viewers can work out what that means. This entire video is basically just calling out G Unit members for being gay. It also disses 50 Cent for allegedly using
The
steroids.
noise of your needs shall perish by poison,
This video
and
was
the slave shall be avenged.
new single from John
My
Legend.
mentor's work will be complete.
And control the people will fall to those who know what to do with
The
it.
same day, Rick Ross drops
Then I will be inducted into the Templar Order.
As agreed, if you make good on your word.
Fear not, senor. I was trained by...
I know all too well who your master was. Just remember where your loyalty lies.
Any evidence for that, but there was one, the guy that
I shall not fail you.
The next day, 50 Cent puts out a video that's probably the most menacing thing I've ever seen in a hip-hop piece. I mean, this thing makes the story of Adidon look like the story of Balamori. He releases the video, A Psychic Told Me. To make this even more spicy, we later found out that the person that actually filmed this was French Montana. He's even seen in one of these videos wearing a This Is 50 t-shirt, which we now unfortunately know he can't blame on his silence. Over the next month, these two trade shots back and forth over diss tracks and animated videos. 50 goes on to drop several more cartoons which don't just clown Rick Ross but also go after T.I., DMX, Suge Knight and Chris Brown. And it's on March the 17th that 50 made the ultimate mistake that would eventually wind him up in bankruptcy. $50 Cent actually leaks a sex tape starring Rick Ross's other baby mama, Brooke, with an introduction of himself in character as Pimpin' Curly and commentary throughout the entire video. I personally don't think it's right or legal to show you any of that tape, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you some of 50's commentary over some very innocent stock footage. 6 days after the sex tape leak on March 23rd, Rick Ross came out with a very unusual video, essentially saying sorry not sorry to the gay community. Later, Rick Ross drops his long-awaited album, Deeper Than Rap. Now the album is out and there's very little to be gained from beefing. These two kind of lose interest in each other. During that time, 50 seems to get closer to Rick Ross's baby mum Tia, helping her release her own tell-all biography. But things get really savage in November, where seemingly out of nowhere, 50 decides to take Rick Ross's baby mama and his kids to Floyd Mayweather's house. February 25th, 2010, and Rick Ross's baby mama Brooke brings a court case against 50 Cent for leaking that sex tape. This court case takes an entire 5 years to get resolved. During that time, the 50 and Ross beef simmers, and a few things happen here and there that are quite interesting. Ross publicly suffers from some seizures, unplayed from Rick Ross in the Maybach Music crew, gets beaten up by G-Unit at a award show, and 50 Cent is pictured wearing his Maybach Music chain at the bowling alley a few days later. 50 clowns Rick Ross for getting his car shot up, and Rick Ross gets accused of pistol whipping his groundskeeper, who is later pictured on Instagram with 50 Cent. 5 years go by, and it's in July 2015 that court case finally gets resolved, and 50 loses. The court ordered 50 to pay $5 million for Brooke for the sex tape leak and $2 million in punitive damages. 3 days after losing that case, 50 Cent files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, it's important to realise that there's a big difference between filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Chapter 11 is more about reorganising your assets so that you can then end up making the payments that you owe, whereas Chapter 7 is a lot more about admitting that there's no way you can pay your payments. However, this didn't stop Rick Ross and the whole world from counting on 50.
My first album was Get Rich,
50 Cent even called out some of the action, mocking the idea of him being bankrupt, which actually caused him to get hauled back into court to explain himself. 50 told the court that the money in the pictures and his whole lavish lifestyle was actually fake. 50 Cent's money woes didn't last very long. By 2017, only 2 years after losing that court case, 50 was actually able to pay off his entire $22 million debt 5 years early. So if you think 50's broke, 50 ain't broke. But how the hell did 50 suddenly get all of this money to pay these debts? 50 didn't just go bankrupt from losing the sex tape case. He'd also been in and out of court with Sleek Audio based on a dispute around the SNS audio headphones deal that he had going on. 50 had originally worked with Sleek to engineer the headphones, but he later left them and ended up doing a deal with some Beatles. Sleek sued him and won, and he ended up owing them $17 million for the development of these headphones. Add that to the outstanding amount that he had to pay Brooke for the sex tape lawsuit. In December 2016, 50 actually won a court case against the lawyers who had represented him in the original Sleek Audio case that he lost. By winning that case against his lawyers, he got $14.5 million, which he then combined with his own funds of $8.3 million, that was basically paying off the entire outstanding debt and get out of bankruptcy. Off the heels of that win, he decided to sue the lawyers from his sex tape case as well. Specifically, he argues that they failed to interview Rick Ross about leaking the sex tape before 50 did. Furthermore, he claimed that there was actually a conflict of interest between an old lawyer that 50 had in 2004 and Rick Ross's current lawyer. As far as I can tell, that court case is currently unresolved, but what I could find was that 50 is looking for $32 million from this case. Even though 50 beat bankruptcy, we can assume that he learned his lesson and he will never leak a sex tape ever again. Okay. DJ Vlad is a divisive voice in the hip-hop scene. Of course, he's the founder of Vlad TV, and while the uninitiated might think that that's just our Russian language hip-hop news site, the truth is that over the last decade and a bit, Vlad TV has become the premier source of interviews with rappers, cappers, and capbusters. Anyone has had a DJ Vlad interview, whether it's a celebrity or a kingpin in the criminal underworld. And over the years, DJ Vlad has been fighting the good fight, disseminating information, news, and knowledge, and documenting anything of significance that relates to the rap culture for us and future generations to look back on and understand what's really going on in these streets. But naturally, this culture soldier hasn't always been viewed favourably by the hip-hop community. He's been dissed endlessly by rappers and fellow rap commentators for being to the police or a snitch, with the main critique being that Vlad's interviews might lead artists who previously lived a life of crime to incriminate themselves on camera. Now, I personally don't buy that argument, and neither does he. He is vehemently denied allegations of snitching, making it very clear to his critics that he doesn't tend to ask people about open cases, and his goal is not to incriminate people. Reiterating for all to see that what he really does is provide a big-ass platform for anyone from any background who has a story to tell, to get their message out there and allow them to publicly reap the benefits and publicity of those stories existing on DJ Vlad's channels for good or for bad. As famous rice magnate Uncle Ben always said, great power with great responsibility. Because of course there is always a danger with this territory that somebody might not like something that they saw said on Vlad TV. And today's story is one of those instances. And in this case, the man who Vlad upset under the thumbs, Rick Ross, or the fake Rick Ross.
America's history is as complex as its people. Public monuments tell part of that story. How can we create a fuller picture of our nation?
The origin story of Kinfolk Stone.
Rick Ross, the biggest boss the rap game has ever weighed. After bursting out the gate in 2006 with his hit song Hot Solid, repeatedly selling bricks, and of course a song where he famously claimed to know Pablo Escobar, despite Escobar having been killed when Rick Ross was 17. Oh, and he also claimed to know Manuel Noriega, who by the time Rick Ross was old enough to buy beer, was serving a 40-year jail sentence. Of course, it was obvious to anybody with half a brain that Rick Ross's big-time drug dealer persona was built on shaky ground from the start. Of course, after Hustlin', Rose's Scarface sampling anthem, Push It only further pushed the mythos that Rick Ross was truly a big fat drug boss moving big fat bricks. However, once Rick Ross the rapper began to pick up steam, eventually the real freeway Ricky Ross, the actual drug dealer who the rapper Rick Ross based his persona on, crawled out the woodwork to cast yet more doubt on Rick Ross the rapper's boastful raps about being a drug kingpin. Now again, anybody with a double-digit IQ could have worked out that Rick Ross the rapper's persona was all theatre even back then. And to the people that genuinely enjoyed his music, it really didn't matter that he wasn't really out there selling bricks or that he didn't really know Pablo Escobar personally. In fact, it seemed like the one person who was most upset about finding out that Rick Ross wasn't really a big-time drug dealer was Rick Ross himself, who following these revelations came across incredibly insecure about his fake persona being exposed. But simple stage name comparisons were merely a drop in the ocean compared to what was revealed in 2008, truly bringing Rick Ross's worst nightmare to fruition. For sure, fans can stomach the fact that the only thing Rick Ross ever ordered by the kilo was lemon pepper wings.
Agatha, I have done as you asked. The imposter is dead. He was working with De Ferrer.
What else have you learned?
Only that he would have forced you out of hiding.
The same gang of prehistoric rap lore exposers.
Let us be thankful it did not come to that. If it had, our brotherhood... Well, let us not dwell. You have destroyed the hornet's nest in the bayou. At least for now. De Ferrer will have his day.
Early morning, running with the sin. I'm a touch of face, man. Look like this. What you got?
Eh bien, quelle jolie robe avons-nous là?
Señorita.
Bonsoir. I'm a friend of Captain Dominguez.
He'd been locked
Is
up
he
for
on
3 years
board?
straight. That's why he got
At this hour, El Capitan is at the tavern. Where else?
Thank you.
Graduating at a department of corrections ceremony, with the obvious implication of this being that Rick Ross, far from being a drug dealer kingpin, was in a former life actually a CEO. Yes, a CEO, a corrections officer, aka president. It seemed like in a heartbeat, Rose went from slanging OZs to guest starring on HBO's OZ. For the record, this happened, there is no denying it. Yes, people, before Rick Ross was a CEO, he was a CEO. Before it was Bel Air Rose in blocking those gates. Before it was brushing your teeth off and running to Wingstop, it was running to G-Wing to stop a toothbrush shanking. I know that one was a reach. Now, for the record, I've read Rick Ross's very good autobiography, Hurricanes, where he discusses in depth his experience being a sequel. He explains why he did it, having been left with no other options at the time after his street crew fell apart. And hey, when you need to win money, a man will do whatever it takes. I genuinely don't think that it's something Rick Ross should be ashamed of. But unfortunately, Rick Ross didn't seem to feel the same way in 2008. Because to me, what made this story so bad wasn't necessarily just Rick Ross.
Suspense! Is the only thing I am
Capitan, we meet again.
Do we? All three of you look familiar. But you're all welcome back to my cabin. I've manhood for...
I don't think...
Or we can consort right here.
What do you know about Rafael Joaquin de Ferrer?
I'm afraid he's not invited.
What's your business with him?
He pays for transport to and from New Orleans. That's all I do. Transport the things and get paid. He's paid. Transport paid. Back and forth. Back.
What is he doing? Why New Orleans?
I do not know. Senor de Ferrer is a very secretive man.
Thank you for your time, Capitan.
Salary, showing his earnings ranging from $22,000 to $25,000 over that year. Not really rich forever, is it? And no, they didn't stop there, because he wants to continue to deny these damning allegations. The smoking gun continued making freedom of information requests, eventually getting their hands on an 86-page personnel file. This Rick Ross sized full documents. Unequivocally, that Rick Ross had to be the CEO, and they even had his propaganda employment application from when he applied for the job in the first place. They even found a personal history form where he named his mother and sister as personal references, and they matched those names with his mom and sis to the thank yous that he gave in the liner notes of his 2008 album, Thriller. They did a background check and proved that Rick Ross has 0 convictions. And how he found out Ross was the CEO, he had a perfect attendance record. Not only was he out being the CEO, he was a damn good CEO too. Hell, he was the most well-behaved CEO in the game, baby. But yes, I should even say he was the Rick Ross of CEOs. And no bad CEOs from Rick Ross. Well, after all this, I'm sure imagine that Rick Ross's face was sure red. And let's not forget that at the time this was such popping news in the hip-hop sphere that every single rap news blog and website was of course reporting on it. And hell, at a certain point this became such a big story that began to infiltrate other interviews with different rappers. Publications began turning to numerous other rappers and supposed career tough guys, as well as the fans, to get their thoughts on Rick Ross's CEO past and find out whether or not it would change people's perception of him. Do you have any problem with Rick Ross being an
Evelyn, out and about as always.
But home to rest now, Papa.
Monsieur Blanc tells me you do a great service to my business. To our business. For it will be your husband someday.
Oh, Papa, you know I should sooner mind my own business than marry.
As stubborn as your mother, Jeanne. If only she could see you now.
But she can't.
No. But perhaps you are old enough now. It is not much. 1 page. But it is from her diary. You should have it.
Thank you, Papa.
At least for a brief moment, that his entire house of cards was about to fall. And so at some point it seemed like Rick Ross was looking at an opportunity to get back at any of the people who were relentlessly clowning him in the situation. And perhaps maybe this was even an opportunity for him to reclaim some of that street cred that he was building up. And the opportunity to get back quickly emerged in the form of emerging Grab News website and budding YouTube channel, Glad TV. Obviously, DJ Glad reported on the CEO rumors surrounding Rick Ross just like anybody else at the time. And story has it, much like MTV was, DJ Glad was out here interviewing other rappers and asking them their opinions on the Rick Ross CEO scandal. And I want to know the articles from around the time it's happened seem to mention that Rick Ross was particularly upset that DJ Glad had asked the feds their opinion on Ross's CEO rumors. Now, we saw that their opinions on Ross weren't particularly spicy from this old Hip-Hop DX article where Malice and Pusha T from the Clips gave their opinions on the situation.
Papa, he surprised me.
I dare not interrupt. Your music is breathtaking. I dare say you could stop a man's heart.
You flatter me too much, Papa. The credit belongs to my teacher. I am but an instrument of his will.
How blessed we are with a daughter who uses her talents in peace. Not to riot in the streets of New Orleans. There is so much unrest since the arrival of the Spanish. Well, I don't want to keep you from your practice. I simply came with a message from Monsieur Blanc. At your leisure, he requests your assistance at the warehouse. Do take care when you go. The streets are not safe for a lady.
No need to worry, Papa.
I will try to restrain myself. I know your charm and grace will protect you like armor.
Stole his entire persona from the real-life drug dealer Rick Ross. A story which I've covered very extensively in this channel. Link in the description, and no, Rick Ross, I will not be with you.
When you take on a volume job, the right tool makes all the difference. With Zenfolio, setup is fast and organized. Upload your subject lists, and galleries are created automatically. No more manual sorting, no more wasted hours. Whether it's 20, 200, or 2,000 subjects, Zenfolio helps you see.
Around a week after that Clips interview was published, on August the 8th, the 2008 Ozone Magazine Awards took place in Houston, Texas. Rick Ross was there performing on stage with T-Pain, Ace Hood, and DJ Khaled, wearing a very large Deacon of Rap t-shirt or a very small Deacon of Rap bedspread with Head and Armholes country. According to TV News, DJ Vlad says that Rick Ross actually reached out to him, sending him a text out of the blue, saying, "You know love," followed by an extended rendition of his album title. Well, apparently Vlad didn't know who the hell this message was even from, and after inquiring what it was, he got a reply. Rick Ross confirmed that he's been getting in touch, saying he's hearing things. After this, Ross called Vlad to say that he'd been hearing things about him on his website, that they were going to make a story together, and suggesting that they were going to meet up. Once they had both worked out that they were in town together for the Ozone Awards, Vlad and Ross arranged a meeting spot on the second floor of the Houston Hilton. Ross came along with 4 other people, Vlad came along. They had a very brief conversation where Rick Ross supposedly said, "We got beef," and apparently angered by both not getting the winks he ordered and DJ Vlad's earlier posting of content seemingly celebrating Ross's downfall, it quickly became clear that Ross had Vlad cornered in the Houston Hilton for one reason only: to administer a 5-piece combo of lemon pepper fists. Ross's boys proceeded to surround Vlad whilst they were still talking, eventually sucker punching him and going on to administer a beatdown so bad Vlad was left on the ground bleeding profusely. The men quickly fled the scene, with apparently one shouting, "Yeah, mother, and that's what you get." Vlad was apparently left with a cut that required 7 stitches below one of his eyes, 3 facial fractures, a corneal abrasion, and possible nerve damage. And to make matters worse, after images emerged showing Vlad in public with a very bruised face. But the disrespect didn't stop there. During a subsequent interview with DJ Envy, Rick Ross publicly clarifying about the incident.
Business dealings.
He needed 400 stitches.
From this desk you can manage, or better still, expand your family's trading empire.
Of course. I wouldn't waste that on Tony.